This video will contain spoilers from the off, so remember, you've been warned. Following on from the end of episode 1 where we saw the Croat's first introduction, and the fact that he had Maggie's son Hershel held captive, this episode developed on slightly, allowed us to see more of Manhattan and also introduced us to the 3 different types of groups that essentially operated within the small city that was overrun with walkers. With some great moments from Negan, Maggie's realization and understanding that the monster is still embedded within him. Let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is The Walking Dead Dead City Episode 2, Ending Explained. It's clear to see from the off that this is a lot more contained than the actual Walking Dead series, but for what it's trying to achieve, it's definitely working. There's a clear mission at play, which is for Maggie to rescue her son from the Croat, whilst also showing us a wider society that almost symbolizes different types of mindsets that are present within the people in the post-apocalyptic state. There is the hunter-type group, which are called the Baratsi, which are led by the Croat. There's the people of New Babylon, which are the ones that live in some kind of democracy that is governed by a marshal. And then we've also got the small group that seem to live as one and as equals, which is where we saw Negan and Maggie find themselves during this episode after being taken as some kind of hostage after Esther led them there. This episode was about forming an alliance and showing that both Maggie and Negan were most similar to the likes of Luther, Tommaso, and their group. The group are often on the receiving end of the harsh force of the Baratsi, which is Croatian for brother. We saw a brutal side to them right at the end of the episode where they were walking around with their helmets on, which had all sorts of weapons that were attached to them, allowing them to harm with minimal effort. We got to learn a lot about the Croat in this episode and the type of mindset that he had. Negan was saying how he was essentially like a brother to him when they worked closely together. The Croat worked as Negan's torturer, but there was a point where he went too far. He tortured a young individual and Negan tried to put him down due to realizing that the Croat was a lost cause, but he failed to do so, which meant that all ties were severed between the both of them, and the Croat held bad blood. So both Negan and the Croat want to get rid of the other in the present day, which is something that I feel we will see happen. We saw just how torturous the Croat could be, judging by the marks and scars that were on the body of the person that managed to escape the initial capture in the first episode of the show. It's not been revealed to us as to why Hershel was taken from Maggie, but I imagine we're going to find out as the season goes on. As we embarked onto the ending of the episode, we saw that the Baratsi stormed the area in which the tribespeople were in, and they slaughtered a load of their people, but most notably, they killed Esther in a brutal fashion. This sparked something inside of Negan, a side that it seemed as though he'd tried to put to bed. The side that makes him a monster and makes people think that he's just this evil being without justification. As an act of revenge, he made it rain the innards of the person that killed Esther, which was pretty hilarious to watch due to the light-hearted approach that he had when he was speaking to the people below. I was a little confused as to why they didn't go after the rest of the group, as they could have just stormed upstairs where everybody was, but I'm just going to put it down to the fear that Negan induced within them. There was a look between Maggie and Negan afterwards, which was quite a powerful moment. She witnessed the savageness that was inside of him, and even though she likes to think of herself as somebody who doesn't do things like that, the very sentence that Negan said to her in the previous episode, "How many fathers and brothers have you killed?" made me think that she's slowly coming to realize that she probably isn't that different from the man that was in front of her. With both Maggie and Negan revealing the truth to the group that they were with, we saw them say how they'd be able to help the both of them to be able to locate the Croat in order to get her son back. They were the individuals that set up the zip lines and formed the more intelligent side of civilization amongst the wasteland that was Manhattan. The line that Tommaso said about how once you're on the island you don't leave was something that was very fitting, and it made me think that the only way that Maggie and Negan are going to get off of the island is once the Croat and the Baratsi are destroyed and wiped out. Pearly Armstrong had an interesting involvement in episode 2. After waking up and managing to avoid the walkers after they were in the same room as him, we saw him go back to an apartment. For a while we'd seen him looking at a note that said Joel Armstrong on, with an address, and one would imagine that it was his brother. However, when he arrived at the apartment, he got there and the individual was no more. It was upon leaving the apartment that he got caught in a trap that was similar to the one that Maggie almost got caught up in the previous episode of the show. Right at the end of the episode, we saw that the Baratsi were the individuals who laid down the traps, and then the Croat took off his helmet and revealed that he was there too. meaning that Pearly is most probably going to become one of the newest hostages that will most likely suffer at the hands of the Croat. I imagine Pearly is going to plead and explain that he was only there because he was looking for Negan, which could in turn mean that the Croat's attention will start getting turned to hunting him down so that he can get revenge on him, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Overall review. I thought this was a pretty good episode. I preferred it to the first as it was slightly shorter, which I think went in its favour slightly. Like I said at the start of the video, the world feels very contained, which is good, and despite there being a lot at stake, it's not too difficult to follow and it taps into the personal motives of the characters. With Ginny staying in the same room that Hershel previously had in the compound, we ultimately saw her leave, so I wonder if she's going to end up going after Negan, as realistically, she is on her own now. Negan was the only person that she had as she wanted to stay and be with him, so I'm intrigued to see if we will see her having to face things on her own, or if she'll go to Manhattan. There's definitely something interesting about her, especially considering that she doesn't speak. I imagine that she's a strong observer and somebody who holds a lot of knowledge. That's what tends to be the case with those types of people, so it will be interesting to see how she'll tie into the developing plot. I think the brutal, graphic nature of the show and the "I'm going to show you everything" approach of the series is really telling of the environment that they're in, and the fight or be killed world that has been created in this new world. You don't see graphic nature like that in most shows, but it works really well here. The Croat is an individual that personally I'd like to see more of in the next episode. If he's essentially the main villain of this season, then I feel we need to see more of him, and understand just how brutal of an individual he is, plus his intentions. The scene in the first episode was a good glimpse into him and the way that he acts, but I'd like to see more and understand his motives. I think a face-off between himself and Negan is inevitable, and it's one that I'm looking forward to happening. With there only being 6 episodes in this season, so only 4 remaining, I'm hoping the story won't feel rushed and it will feel fleshed out. It's one that I imagine by the end we'll be wishing that we had more. But for now, I guess we can enjoy what we've got and hold out until the next episode. So, there you have it, The Walking Dead Dead City Episode 2 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.